Welcome back to Magic Muggle, a Harry Potter after show. This is your host, Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest, and today we're in the part of Prisoner of Azkaban where the entire story flips. We're covering chapters 19, The Servant of Lord Voldemort, and chapter 20, The Dementor's Kiss. The stretch where the truth finally comes out, a rat becomes a man, a murderer becomes a godfather, and Harry's happiest thought in the world gets weaponized against him. Last time we ended on that perfect cliffhanger. We met Sirius and Lupin in the Shrieking Shack. We got the wild, your rat is a Death Eater claim. And then Snape stepped into the doorway with the invisibility cloak, that absolutely feral look of triumph on his face. So let's pick it up right here. We open with chaos. Hermione screams, Sirius jumps up, Harry feels like he's just been electrocuted. And in strides, Professor Snape, cloak in hand, wand aimed at Lupin's chest like he's been waiting his whole life for this one night. Snape has everything he's ever wanted in one room. The childhood bully, Sirius, the werewolf he never trusted, Lupin, and the student he resents, Harry. All in one scandalous package. He throws the cloak aside, explains he found it by the Whomping Willow, and then drops the big reveal. He went to bring Lupin his Wolfsbane potion, found the Marauder's map on his desk, and watched Lupin run down this very passageway. In Snape's mind, it's an open and shut case. Lupin has been helping Sirius into the castle. The werewolf and the escaped convict are working together. And now he gets to deliver them to Dumbledore and to Azkaban, with Harry as living proof. And you can hear the old schoolboy in his voice. He calls Lupin a tame werewolf. He brings up how he's told Dumbledore again and again, he's not just catching a criminal. He's finally winning the argument he's been losing since he was 16. This is Snape at his most revealing. The mask slips. He's not being objective. He's not being a good teacher. He's reliving his trauma. Everything about this scene is colored by the Marauder era bullying, the prank at the Whomping Willow, the insults, the humiliation. And because he won't listen, because he refuses to consider even the thought that he might be wrong about Sirius and Lupin, he's about to almost ruin everything. Remus tries to explain calmly and urgently, you're making a mistake. Sirius isn't here to kill Harry. Snape does not care. Hermione tries to suggest that they at least hear them out and absolutely unloads on her. He calls her stupid, he tells her she doesn't understand, and he looks borderline deranged. Snape is crazy right now. You can feel how dangerous it is when a grown man with power and trauma decides he already knows the whole story. And then Lupin drops the line that cuts into the heart of it. Is a schoolboy grudge worth putting an innocent man back inside Azkaban? That's the thesis of this whole confrontation. Snape's answer in his behavior is, yeah, kind of. Now, Snape has exactly what he wants. Sirius disarmed in front of him. Lupin bound to the floor. He starts fantasizing out loud about Dementors giving Sirius the kiss, and maybe Lupin too. He's enjoying this, and Harry has to make a choice. He steps in front of the door and challenges him. Lupin has had 100 chances to kill him this year and never did. Harry's been alone with him, trusted him. If Lupin was helping Sirius, why didn't he let Harry accidentally die months ago? Snape won't hear it. He throws like father, like son at Harry, says James died too arrogant to believe he might be wrong. That line hurts. For Snape, this is justice. For Harry, it's an insult to everything his parents died for. And in a split second, the kids do something that feels kind of unforgivable and kind of inevitable. All three shout Expelliarmus at the same time. That's best friend energy right there. The blast is so strong, it blows Snape off his feet, slams him into the wall, and knocks him out cold. His wand flies to the bed. There's even a trickle of blood. Hermione was the first reaction. We attacked a teacher. We're going to be in so much trouble. Harry's in that shock space of quite not knowing exactly what he did and if it was right. And Sirius hilariously is just like, you should have left him to me. This is the moment where the trio crosses a line with authority and also steps fully into the war that they don't even know they're a part of yet. They've attacked a teacher. They've disarmed an adult. But their instincts are right. Blinding, obeying Snape here would have handed Sirius to the Dementors and buried the truth. You can feel the series shifting from we broke a school rule to we might have just changed someone's entire life. It's a tiny preview of what's coming in future books. Sometimes doing the right thing looks really, really bad on paper. The rat, the photo, and the missing toe. This is where it gets juicy. Now that Snape's down and Lupin's free, it's time for proof. Ron is clutching Scabbers like a furry little denial machine. Sirius insists, give me Peter. And Ron asks a fair question. Even if Pettigrew can turn into a rat, there are millions of rats. How does Sirius know that this one is Peter? And that's when Sirius pulls out the photograph. Well, metaphorically, he brings up the photograph. The Weasleys in Egypt from the Daily Prophet. The one Harry saw last summer. And there, on Ron's shoulders, Scabbers with a missing toe. Lupin connects it in real time. The largest piece of Pettigrew they found after the explosion was a finger. Scabbers is missing a toe. This rat has been in Ron's family for 12 years, and no ordinary rat lives that long. Ron tries to justify it, but we all know as an audience at this moment that this kind of has guilty written all over it for little Peter Pettigrew / Scabbers. And suddenly all the background noise of the book just clicks into place. Scabbers looking sick since Egypt. Scabbers panicking when Sirius escapes Azkaban. Scabbers terrified long before Crookshanks ever showed up. Crookshanks, by the way, gets promoted to MVP familiar in this chapter. He recognized that Sirius was no ordinary dog. He recognized that Scabbers was no ordinary rat. He stole Neville's passwords for Sirius. He tried to drag Pettigrew to Sirius more than once. The crazy cat turns out to have been right the whole time, and I was right to put him on the cover of this season. Why it matters. This is one of Rowling's best everything was in front of you reveals. A throwaway photo, a sickly rat, a cat who hates him. All of it was mystery baked into the background. It's also our first really big look at how war doesn't end cleanly. Pettigrew didn't die a tragic hero. He faked his death and hid in a 12-year lie. We go from Ron's gross hand-me-down rat to this man who sold Harry's parents to Voldemort. He was living with Ron this whole time. Just in a couple of pages we learned this. That whiplash is so intentional. That's what betrayal feels like. I gotta say, thinking back to the movies, I don't remember that actor's name. I'll bring it up when we get to the movie, hopefully, if I remember. But Peter Pettigrew, I can't get the movie version out of my head. He plays him so well. Lupin and Sirius count to 3, fire off a spell together, and in one of the most vivid transformations in the series, Scabbers stretches, twists, and becomes a man. Peter Pettigrew is not impressive. He looks like Scabbers turned human, pale, grubby, water-eyed. He's sweaty, shaking, and immediately starts calling Sirius and Lupin my old friends, pathetically, like the magic phrase is going to save him or something. Sirius goes for his wand, and Lupin physically holds him back. And then Lupin does something brilliant. He interrogates Peter like a teacher and an old friend at the same time. Why would an innocent man live as a rat for 12 years? Why did you cut off your own finger? Why were Voldemort's supporters screaming about a double-crosser in their sleep? Pettigrew's defense is pure cowardice. Voldemort was unstoppable. What good would it have done to resist? He was scared, never brave like the others. It's just so pathetic. Sirius, meanwhile, drops his side of the story. He suggested Peter as secret keeper, thinking it was a clever bluff. He went to check on Peter that night and found him gone, no signs of a struggle, and knew something was wrong. He arrived at the ruined house and realized what Peter had done, and what he, Sirius, had done by suggesting the switch. There's a line in there that kills me. Sirius says he as good as killed them. This is survivor's guilt in a sentence. He didn't cast the curse, but he changed the piece on the chessboard that allowed it to happen. This conversation rewrites the entire book, and part of the series. Rereads will never be the same for you after this moment. Sirius Black isn't the traitor. The Weasley family pet is. The man Harry's been afraid of all year turns out to be the one who loved his parents enough to hunt their betrayer for 12 years. Hermione also gets a great question in. If Pettigrew is working for Voldemort and has been sleeping in Harry's dorm for 3 years, why hasn't he hurt Harry? Sirius's answer is so on brand for Pettigrew. Voldemort is weak, half alive. Peter was waiting to see which way the wind would blow. He wasn't going to risk himself for a fallen master, but he was perfectly positioned to hand over the last Potter the second the dark side rose again. Pettigrew doesn't worship Voldemort. He worships whoever's most powerful. Once the truth is out, Sirius and Lupin roll up their sleeves, literally. They're done. There's a kind of grim, marauder-style poetry in it. These two men who loved James, standing shoulder to shoulder, ready to execute the man who really betrayed him. Pettigrew begs everybody in the room, Ron, I was your pet, Hermione, sweet girl, clever girl. Begging, Harry, you look just like your father. James would have shown me mercy. That is just, has so much nerve. He has so much nerve to say that to Harry. And Sirius absolutely loses it at that fact, at Peter daring to say James' name. And then we get one of the most important choices Harry ever makes in this series. He steps between Sirius and Lupin and says, you can't kill him. We'll take him to the castle. We'll have the Dementors deal with him. I don't think my dad would have wanted his best friends to become killers. Not for you. What happens is simple. Harry stops an execution. Pettigrew is bound and chained to Lupin, and Ron. So they got a trio walking in chains. Snape is levitated like a creepy puppet, and the whole bizarre little procession starts walking back to the castle with Crookshanks leading the way, aiming toward the Whomping Willow. So this is Harry's moral spine in action. He's not saying Pettigrew doesn't deserve punishment. He's saying we don't become what we hate to get justice. So wise of young Harry. That line about not wanting his dad's friends to be killers, that's everything. It's the beginning of a huge chain reaction. Without Harry's mercy, Pettigrew dies here in the shack. No Pettigrew means no... Spoiler alert, skip ahead 10 seconds if you don't want to know what happens in the next book. That means no resurrection ritual in the Goblet of Fire. So Harry's mercy literally helps Voldemort return eventually. Rowling is doing something really bold for a kid's book. She's telling you mercy is right, but she's also showing that the world isn't always rewarded immediately. Harry made the right choice, and the universe still punishes him for it later. That's very real. So, we start chapter 20, The Dementor's Kiss, with what has to be one of the funniest mental images in the whole book. Crookshanks trotting in front, Lupin and Ron and Pettigrew clanking along like a chained three-man race, Snape floating behind them like a limp bat on strings, Sirius steering him via wand, and Hermione and Harry bringing up the rear. It's tense, but it's also darkly hilarious. This is what it looks like when kids and traumatized adults try to march the truth back to authority. And then we get the scene that breaks my heart every single time. As they trudge through the tunnel, Sirius quietly asks Harry, do you know what this means, turning Pettigrew in? Harry, bless his straightforward heart, says that, yeah, you're free. Sirius goes one step further. He tells Harry, he's not just the guy in the wanted poster. He's Harry's godfather. James and Lily named him Harry's guardian if anything ever happened to him. And then he does the most awkward, sweetest thing. He offers Harry a choice. He says he'll understand if Harry wants to stay with the Dursleys, but if Harry ever wanted a different home, once Sirius' name is cleared, you can almost hear him bracing for rejection. 12 years in Azkaban convinced him he ruined everything. Why would James' son want to live with him? And Harry just explodes with joy. I mean, he doesn't even try to hide it. Live with you? Leave the Dursleys? When can I move in? Sirius turns around and gives Harry his first real smile. Not a grimace, not a manic laugh, but an actual bright human smile. For a second, Harry sees the man from his parents' wedding photo. This is Harry's deepest wish finally dangling within reach. Not fame, not Quidditch, not money. A home. A grown-up who loved his parents and loves him. This is the moment Prisoner of Azkaban holds up everything Harry's been missing and says, what if? And then, because it's this book, it snatches it away. The rest of the chapter hurts 10 times more because of this scene. Harry's Patronus later, it's powered by exactly this. I'm going to live with my godfather. I'm leaving the Dursleys. Rowling builds the happiest possible thought just so she can weaponize it. They emerge from the tunnel onto the dark grounds, and from here it should be simple. drag Pettigrew to the castle, hand everyone over to Dumbledore, clear Sirius's name. Instead, the moon slides out from behind a cloud. Lupin goes rigid. Hermione realizes it before anyone else has. He did not take his potion. That's how Snape found the map and found the Whomping Willow. He was bringing him, Lupin, his potion to not turn into a werewolf. We watch him transform in real time, body twisting, hair sprouting, hands turning to clawed paws. Sirius shoves Harry and Hermione back and tells them to run, and then transforms himself. The big black dog, Padfoot, launches at the werewolf to try and drag him away from the kids. It's brutal. They're clawing and biting and locked together in moonlight grass. Crookshanks has his fur puffed up again and backing away. Ron, still chained to Lupin and Pettigrew, stumbles. Lupin breaks his chain in the chaos. And in all that confusion, Pettigrew does what Pettigrew always does. He grabs a wand. He blasts Ron off his feet, flings Crookshanks aside, transforms back into a rat, and vanishes into the night. Sirius, bleeding and torn up from the fight, takes off after Lupin into the forest. Lupin's tragedy is laid bare. He did forget his potion. Snape was right about that, and the cost is enormous. Sirius acts on pure instinct. Protect the kids, pull the danger away, even if it means losing the one witness who can clear his name. Pettigrew's escape is the moment Harry's mercy comes back around. He spared Peter from execution, and Peter bolts the second that there's an opening. Ron is unconscious. Crookshanks is down. Snape's still floating like a bat pinata. Everything that felt so neatly resolved in the shack unravels in a handful of pages. The truth doesn't always travel in a straight line. Harry and Hermione decide that they need help, so they start heading back toward the castle, and then they hear it, a dog yelping in pain. Harry makes the choice that defines this chapter. Instead of continuing to the castle, he runs toward the sound. Hermione goes with him. They reach the lake. Sirius is back in human form on his knees, hands over his head, begging, "No, please." And then Harry sees them. A massive wave of Dementors gliding along the lake. It says, not 1, not 10, but 100. They close in like a black tide around Harry, Hermione, and Sirius. The temperature plummets, the light dies, the screaming in Harry's head ramps up again, and he does the only thing he knows how to do. He tries to cast a Patronus. And this is where Rowling kills me. He digs for a happy thought, and what does he grab? I'm going to live with my godfather. I'm leaving the Dursleys. The thing we just watched get built in the tunnel, that memory he throws at the darkness, he yells Expecto Patronum over and over. Hermione tries to, but her spell fizzles. Sirius collapses. Hermione collapses. The Dementors keep coming. Harry is the last one standing. 13 years old, alone on a lakeshore, trying to hold back a wall of soul-sucking monsters with a half-formed silver mist. He forces out one more Patronus, enough to make the nearest Dementor pause, but it isn't enough. One of them raises its hand and lowers its hood. We get the full horror of the Dementor's kiss. Rotting skin stretched over a face, they're described as. No eyes. A gaping, sucking mouth. Hands forcing Harry's face up so it can get to him first. I guess they just claim him guilty because he's helping Black. Harry hears his mother's screams. Like always, he feels the breath, that death rattle inhale. His Patronus dies out, and he reaches blindly for Sirius's arm, refusing to let them take him. And then, when it should all be over, he sees the light. A blinding, silvery light pours across the grass. Something bright and powerful charges the Dementors, driving them back, circles Harry, Hermione, and Sirius, and pushes the cold away. Harry raises his head just enough to see a large glowing animal galloping across the lake, as bright as a unicorn, and on the opposite shore, someone welcoming it. Someone who looks familiar. Harry thinks it's his father, and then he finally collapses. This is the emotional low point of this book. Harry almost loses his soul. Sirius almost loses his. Hermione nearly does too. And all of it happens right after Harry allowed himself to believe he might finally get a real home. The nature of Harry's happiest thought is huge. It's not about glory or victory. It's the idea of living with someone who loves him. Your Patronus is literally powered by the love you believe you can have. The mystery of the Patronus on the far shore sets up the next chapter. Harry believes he saw his dad, and that belief carries him into one of the coolest time-twisty payoffs in the whole series. We'll talk about that in the finale episode when we cover Chapter 21, Hermione's Secret, and Chapter 22, Owl Post Again. The do-over night, the truth about the Patronus, and the fallout for Sirius and Lupin. So, what do these two chapters do for Prisoner of Azkaban? Azkaban, tomato, tomato, and for the series? They rewrite the past. Everything Harry thought he knew about his dad's friend group, about betrayal, about the man on that wanted poster, all gets flipped. They introduce a villain made of cowardice, not power. Voldemort is terrified because he's strong. Pettigrew is terrified because he's weak and still dangerous. They sharpen Harry's moral identity. He protects the man who betrayed his parents from being murdered by the two men who loved him. And that's insane. And it's exactly who Harry is. They define Snape's limitations. He's brave, he's smart, but when his schoolboy wounds get triggered, he'll ignore the truth right in front of him. And they set up the heartbreak of this book. Harry comes this close to getting what he's always wanted, a home. And then the universe says not yet. We're at the point in the series where the stories are starting to say, you can be good and brave and merciful, and it can still hurt. Next time on Magic Muggle, we'll walk back through this entire night from a different angle. We'll follow Hermione's secret and talk about what it means that Harry's greatest protector is someone who we know a little bit already. And that's where we're leaving it for now, on the edge of the lake, on the edge of consciousness, and right on the edge of everything this book has been building toward. Next week is going to be wild, and it's a heck of a finale. I can promise you that. If you enjoyed today's episode, if you're feeling the magic, the mystery, the momentum, the best way to keep this show growing is simple. Leave a 5-star rating, write a quick review, and share Magic Muggle with a friend who loves this world as much as we do. It makes a huge difference, truly. And if you want to go a step further, we do have a little tip jar in the About section of this episode. The easiest way to support the show directly. Think of it like dropping a galleon in the hat on your way out of the Three Broomsticks. Every bit helps, keeps the light on, and the episodes flowing. Never expected, always appreciated. Down the line, we'll be opening up a Patreon that ties in with my other podcast, Marvel Maniac and MCU After Show, with bonus content and extra little corners of the Honest Verse coming together. But for now, the tip jar and your ratings are the heartbeat that keep this adventure going. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, for caring, and for walking through these chapters with me. We're in for a heck of a ride next week. And until then, I'm Eric Cicada, aka Mr. Honest. This is Magic Muggle. And as always, wands down, hearts full.